quiet. Now I want to go over another active lure with you here. It's a jig, good thing for walleye, good for smallmouth, whatever. This particular one here is called a jitter jig. And what it is, it's just a regular jig head. It's just a plain old knuckleball jig head. And what it has on it is a little piece of metal at the front that you tie onto. And when you cast this out, it would be like any other jig. You're going to let it sink down to the bottom. And when you lift it up, see it flash and vibrate because of that little piece of metal in the front there? I'll reel it by, you can see it. That little piece of metal in the front makes it vibrate like heck. And it'll bring, like if the fish are just a little bit off, sometimes just a little bit of vibration like that will make a difference. Last night when we were doing this here, I was doing a seminar here last night, and if you were to reel this along about 6 inches off the bottom, you'd get a bite every time you did it. If you had it 3 feet off the bottom, they wouldn't touch it. Let's see if it's the same way today. We reel it back just about that depth right there. So they're not going to bite it today for any reason. They're not even having a look at it. Yeah, these fish are really, really off. But what this does is it just gives the fish something more to home in on. Once again, I'm using braided line, and the feel on this is incredible. You can feel the vibration. If I could let this room be really quiet for you, you can actually hear this thing in the water. It actually makes a noise in the water. You can hear it. And it's just another jig. It's just another presentation. I've got a little plastic tail on the back there. But it's something that in recent years I've been catching so many fish with. It's absolutely amazing. And it's just, something else. It's just a little thing that makes a big difference. And a lot of guys are fishing with this in Quinte, down in the bay of Quinte for walleyes. And you know what they're using it for? They're using it to ice fish. And this is what they're doing with it. The vibration, let it fall. The vibration, let it fall. So it attracts the fish around when it has all the vibration and swirling and flashing, and as it's sinking back to the bottom, they bite it. But it's amazing. I looked at these at first and I thought, oh geez, just something else to get stuck in the rocks. But I'm telling you, man, when you get that, if you fish that thing, you just bring it along, let it vibrate a little bit, let it go to the bottom, you can give it a few twitches. It just looks like something a little bit extra down there. You can fish it on a 6.5 foot spinning rod, which most guys already have out there. But it's an amazing little bait, and it's something that really, really helps you catch a lot more fish. And I'm always looking for something new, but I don't forget the old things either. And this is definitely something that's different and new and catches a lot of fish out there. There's a lot of things on the websites and Facebook and things about guys ice fishing, catching a lot of fish, ice fishing with it. And it's just it's just one of those little things. When you see a lot of guys that are just everyday fishermen out there, they don't work for a company, nobody's paying them to say, hey, I do this or whatever, it's amazing when you see a lot of fish out there. Glad you're catching. Anybody happen to see the show I did, the show last weekend with Bob Azumi catching smallies? You guys see that out there? It was on last weekend. We did something that was really funny. There was a guy here last night. He says, hey, Big Jim, I saw you with Bob last weekend catching those fish. What kind of rod and reel were you using? And I said, well, it's funny. That rod and reel, exactly the way I brought it home from the place, was sitting there. It was one of the ones I grabbed to bring to the show, and it's this actual rod and reel right here. And all we were doing, now I've got a pink one on here. That's just zero from Strike King. We call that wacky rigging. You just have a finesse weedless hook from down the Gatsu there, and you hook in the middle. And the easiest thing about this is you cast it out, and here's what you do. You eat a few sandwiches, and you wait for the fish to pick it up like that. Just let it settle down. Don't be in a rush. Just let it go down to the bottom. Lift it back up. I'm moving a little bit too fast now. But let it go down. Take all kinds of time. Just let it sink to the bottom. Don't be in a rush. There's no weight on that. The only weight on that is the hook. And there's something, when I said to you about things flashing and moving, when something floats down like that, I think it just looks so, like, it just means nothing to the fish that they come and eat it. I haven't got it rigged exactly in the middle, or it would float down exactly in the middle. But when those things float down like that, that's one of the easiest things to fish with. Guys that I know that guide, I don't guide like anymore at all, but guys that I know that guide a lot, this has been their savior. And when I was finishing up my guiding days, I couldn't believe, I had the people on fish, but sometimes if guys don't fish a lot, it's hard to get them to catch the fish. And you can literally go out, cast this out, just let it settle down like that, and do absolutely nothing. Just like that. That's all you got to do. When it gets to the bottom, give it a few little jiggles, let it go back down like that. Really, really simple. called wacky rigging. Is anybody out there doing this? Any of you guys out there? Yeah, are you catching fish with it? Yeah. And you know, if you're not getting bit, sometimes a simple change. I was fishing a benefit thing in Royce Lake last year out of Peterborough, and we were fishing with a 5.5-inch bait, and we were getting the odd fish, but not many. I wasn't on it at all with the guys that I had. I couldn't get it done. We changed our baits from 5.25 or 5.5 to 4 inches. Same water, immediately started to catch fish. Same color, same everything. Immediately started to catch fish. So it was the size that day that was going to make the difference out there. But it's something you have to pay attention to. Like to fish it on braided line, and I don't worry about fishing a fluorocarbon leader. If I was in really, really clear water, I might. But I mean, all those fish we caught, Bob and I doing that. You know, some of the rods and reels that day had fluorocarbon leaders. Some of them didn't. This particular one, I had mono on at the time, but just the fluorocarbon. But I mean, I fish a lot of other days in a lot of other lakes, and I don't worry about it at all. I don't worry about it at all. It's something that's so simple to do, and it just attracts so many fish. It's incredible, and it's, like I say, it's one of the simplest things out there in the world to do. So if you're out there fishing, it's something that you really, you probably should have a look at, because it's going to put a lot more fish in the boat for you. What it's really nice for is when you get out and you do this with people that don't fish a lot, and they don't have to worry about it. Like, you don't have to be a great fisherman to catch fish doing this, because it just attracts them. That's all there is to it. Get in there. It's a really, really cool method. Now, a lot of people fish grubs. See them out there fishing, you know, the old Mr. Twister style. I got one on here that I want to show you, and it's not so much the grub itself, but it's what we're going to do with it. I've got this Texas rig on here, and that's something that you don't see people do a lot, is fish a Texas rig grub. I've got this rig the way you would fish a big worm for bass or something, and you know what I use it for? I use it for fishing for walleyes. Got a little titanium sinker on there, and all it is the same thing that you would use for bass, except I've taken off that 7-inch worm or that 10-inch worm or that big 5-inch craw or something like that, and I put a little grub like you would use. Why? Because it's weedless. You can cast it through the weeds. You're not going to get stuck. Generally, when we fish a grub like this, you fish this on a jig head, and the jig head has an open hook, so it's going to get caught a lot. And it's the simplest thing in the world, man. Simplest thing in the world. Throw it out, let her go down to the bottom. Give it a couple of little pops, you know, shake it, move it along. You might want to lift it up a couple of feet and let it go back down. Or just work it back to the boat. And if you do come to some weed, or you should be fishing in the weed, hopefully, because that's, you know, where the fish are. Lift it up, bring it along, let it settle down, let that tail work. You might want to let it sit there for a little while. You get a fish there looking at it like that one is, you can just give it a little shake there, just move it a little weedy bit sometimes, try and get his attention. But it's something that I do, and it's something that I do it for largemouth a lot, but I also do it for walleyes a lot. If you fish up in the Kawartha Lakes or Rice Lake or anywhere like that, fishing something like this is just a dynamite method. Just having a good look at it there, right? Anybody gonna eat it? They're having a look. That's the closest thing we've had to get their attention, eh? Thinking about eating it, eh? The three of them are having a good look. That's one of those new grubs from Rapala there, the Trigger X stuff. I bet you if that was fresh right out of the bag, it wasn't a couple of days old on the hook to scent, they would have been on that, because it definitely has a look. Look at that, eh? It's giving it a little taste. See, I'm not moving it, I'm shaking it as little as I can. Look at them, they're all getting in on it. It's the competitive nature, eh? One wants to have a look, so the rest of them have to look at it, eh? Wow, these fish are really turned off. Isn't that neat to see them all look at it like that? It's the only thing that they've looked at in everything we put in there. Whoa, whoa, no, oh, no. You think you can catch this one, Ron? They're looking though, eh? Yeah, they've lost their interest, eh? Feeding time's over. Someone rang the bell and they're all gone. Sometimes you do something right out and they'll change it. But it's something I do a lot. It allows you to fish in the weeds. It allows you to catch a lot of fish. And you know, once again, it's great if you bring out the kids and you want them to fish. Giving a kid a Texas rig bait, it doesn't have the hook exposed, so they're not going to be snagged all the time. Plus, it's a lot safer when the kids are up there doing this stuff, you know, spelling around, you know, bouncing off your head. I can't remember the number of times when I guided. I used to guide a lot of families with kids, because that's what I sort of, you know, like geared everything towards. I either got guys that wanted to be tournament pros and they wanted me to show them how to do stuff, But they brought out the kids because they knew they were going to catch a bunch of fish, and this is something here that we used to use a lot. And if you knew the number of times I've had hooks stuck in my head, my back, my elbow, my arm, it's a lot of fun. I had a kid come around one day with a jig, broke it off behind my ear, 10-pound mono, and the line goes snap as he follows through. It snaps off from the jig behind my ear, and the kid turns, he looks at his dad, he goes, "My jig came off." And I turn at him and I go, "Do you recognize this?" And it's embedded in a nice skull in the back. We tried to get it out, you could hear the bone. So I put a piece of duct tape over it and we fished for the rest of the day. But there's a lot of little things. Everybody that's fished. Ron, you ever had a hook in the yap?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know another guy one day was fishing. He got a rapala right in here between his eyes. The middle hook was in his nose in here, and the back hook was inside his mouth. So he's got all three hooks of a great big float of rapala buried across his face like this. And he did this about 10:30 in the morning. Fished all day in a tournament on the Ottawa River. He fished all day with that lure stuck in his face. Now they didn't even come close to winning. I don't even know why we stayed. I would have left. You only caught 2 fish the first day or something. But boy, I gotta say, when you get guys like that, that's hanging in there tough. Let's see if we can get these guys to eat the Trigger X again. I have a buddy in Montreal that I fish with, Mark Thorpe. He's a muskie guy. And he loved my little phrase when we were fishing there last year was being sit mon chum, right? Come here, my friend. And right at about 5 casts after I said it, I got one of about 27 pounds. So that's his go-to slogan. Now look at that. He'll come have a look at it, eh? It's amazing how they're coming to look, eh? He'll follow it along, but he won't eat it. Bob Azumi could catch this fish. He's down in Florida right now. I was talking to him last night. He's heading down there for a tournament. He's driving down with the boat. He's going to fish for a week. He's going to leave the boat there, fly home, do a couple of things, and then go back down for the tournament. What a life, right? Come on, boys. Nah. Well, the trout having a look. They're not going to bite. Today's not the day. It's amazing because it's highly unusual for these fish not to bite. Like highly unusual. Like everybody loves coming to the boat show because Andy gets the fish that come from the fish farm, and they're absolutely wild. And in the middle of the winter, everybody wants to catch a few of them out there. So it's a really cool thing. Is Andy down there?